How's it going, everybody? Raggroth here. So I wanted to do a video talking about Ninja Gaiden 4. I know I've talked about it here and there, or at least various things regarding to Ninja Gaiden since Ninja Gaiden 4 got announced. So there's been a lot of videos about it. Some have been kind of positive about it, celebrating its praises, and a lot have been a little bit more negative, or I guess divisive, on the game as of right now. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, and I kind of wanted to talk a bit about that. If I had to sum up sort of, I think, the main reason why I think people are not loving this game so far, I think we kind of have to look at another major hack and slash or character action game to kind of see why, and that's Devil May Cry. What I think the problem here is with Ninja Gaiden 4, why people are kind of so divisive over it, is that they're kind of pulling a Devil May Cry 4 with this game when they should be pulling a Devil May Cry 5. Now, I know that sounds silly because it's like, well, Devil May Cry 4 and Ninja Gaiden 4, the fourth entries in the series, shouldn't it be closer to how Devil May Cry 4 does it? And yes, I would agree, but I think the thing is we have to kind of look at the circumstances of both series as when their fourth entries came out or are coming out. And I guess what I'm kind of getting at is the main complaint you mainly hear people go with this game is that Ryu Hayabusa is getting sidelined. I've noticed this kind of happens a lot with kind of action games. So yeah, Devil May Cry 4's instance was, Nero kind of sidelining Dante. I know this is in the same genre, but in Metal Gear Solid 2, Raiden sidelining Snake. This example also applies as well. In Bayonetta 3, we had Viola arguably sidelining Bayonetta. I haven't beaten Bayonetta 3 yet, so I don't really know the full extent of it. Now, what I mean by what I initially said was that, so Devil May Cry 4, yes, so that's the game that introduced Nero, and Nero was playable for, I think, slightly over half of the game. Now, with Ninja Gaiden 4, what at least seems to be suggested, Yakumo, I guess the Nero in this example, will probably be playable for definitely more than half the game, and Ryu's screen time, game time might not even kind of reach like 40%, maybe 30% at most. I guess another thing too is like Nero only really had one melee weapon and one ranged weapon, and Dante still got a few different melee and ranged weapons. The arsenal of his was smaller than Devil May Cry 3, of course, but I think it's to be expected with just the game kind of jumping to HD. Was it HD? I actually don't. I forget. Kind of, and just the fact it's, you have two characters playable at launch this time. Then I think the biggest thing too is, again, with the circumstances of both series, is that when Devil May Cry 4 came out, that was after Devil May Cry 3. Devil May Cry 3 was, I think, most considered the best game of the series, or at least kind of the game that I think really made Devil May Cry what it is today. So I think after that game, I don't really think we were worried that there wouldn't be another Devil May Cry game. And it was like, Devil May Cry 3, I think, came out 2004 or 5, and I think Devil May Cry 4 came out 2008. Yeah, it's like a 3 or 4 wait. Not to mention that we had Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition in between that anyway. But then with Ninja Gaiden 4, I think this game and Ragebound was announced. Ninja Gaiden has been dead for almost like, I think it's coming up on a decade, because I think the last game was Yaiba, and that I think came out, I think it was 2014. It was like 2014 or 2015. Yeah, it's been over a decade since we had a Ninja Gaiden game, and I'm not counting Master Collection. That was just an HD collection. And of course, I'm not really counting Ninja Gaiden 2 Black in this example as well, especially because that literally came out on the day Ninja Gaiden 4 was announced. So I think the expectations, if you're kind of reviving a game series from the dead, I think what Devil May Cry 5 did was, I think, the safer route to go. Devil May Cry 5 essentially brought back Nero, who I guess then was no longer a new character, brought back Dante, and it did introduce a new character, the V, even though V kind of technically wasn't a new character. He was half new character, I don't know, put it that way. And that game just seemed like more of a return to form, basically a love letter to the franchise. So I think that's kind of the way to kind of do it. Like, if you're kind of bringing a game series back, wouldn't it be safe to just, play it safer and kind of have a lot of fan service And I mean, it is Ninja Gaiden DOA, you would think fan service. But that would be, I think that's kind of the way to kind of gain trust back in the fandom. With the Ninja Gaiden 4, I feel like it's definitely a less safe game. Like they're kind of introducing this new character that's, I guess, sort of the Nero of the game, Yakumo. It seems like it's kind of pushing Ryu out of the picture a little bit, and not to mention, not only just Ryu, there's no Rachel, there's no Ayane, no Momoji, no Kasumi. So, like, where the hell is everybody? And, of course, if you wanted to have a new male playable character, well, you literally had Hayate, as I discussed in another video. It is weird that they're doing that. And even Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, Ryu's not the main character in that, but Ragebound I can excuse a little bit more. I think many of us can excuse a little bit more because the story of that game is intentionally, hey, here's what was going on in the Dragon Ninja Village when Ryu went to America during the events of the old NES Ninja Gaiden games. So that kind of gets a little bit of a pass. Not to mention, I think Ryu has become more synonymous with a 3D hack and slash rather than kind of 2D platformer hack and slash kind of game anyway, regardless if he started with that. So I think when you kind of introduce all these new elements and characters and kind of push out the old so much when you're kind of reviving a series, I guess it doesn't inspire as much faith. It kind of seems like you're sort of, I don't want to say spitting in the face of the fans. That's a little harsh. Kind of like saying like, hey, this didn't work, now we're doing this kind of thing. And I know with kind of the lack of the other DOA characters, I do wonder if that means that, hey, they're kind of waiting, and I guess even the sort of decrease of Ryu, I wonder if that maybe means they want to bring Ninja Gaiden back, but maybe they kind of want to save the more DOA-ish elements for when they revive DOA, hopefully in the future. Then when we get when we get DOA back, we'll get more like, you know, Ayane and all them in Ninja Gaiden and more Ryu. I'm not sure there. And unfortunately could also be for the worse, where it's like the reason all those characters are being pushed out is because they're absolutely done with DOA and they want Ninja Gaiden to be more of its own thing, which that would be kind of sad in all fairness. I mean, I feel like Ninja Gaiden was still more of its own thing anyway, but you still had those kind of DOA-isms in there. And, you know, I mean, Rachel and Momoji debuted in Ninja Gaiden, so it's not like they're, I mean, yeah, I know they're playable and Dead or Alive, but it's not like, you know, they're not in Ninja Gaiden either. That's where they debuted at. And well, I think another thing, too, is that this game is also kind of being criticized for kind of making the same mistakes from vanilla Ninja Gaiden 3, which is having Ryu only use one weapon, the Dragon Sword, and kind of the mistake of Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, where you're kind of bringing in this random new character. Now, I do agree, it is kind of frustrating they are kind of making those same mistakes. However, it's not exactly those exact same mistakes. And the reason why is because in vanilla Ninja Gaiden 3, yes, Ryu only had one weapon, but he was also the only playable character. Now there's two playable characters. One is Ryu with possibly only one weapon. But now we have this other new character that has, I think we know he at least has 3 weapons. So there's already more to play with, just not with Ryu, unfortunately. And to be fair, it's not 100% confirmed that Ryu only has the Dragon Sword. It is unfortunately looking that way, but we don't know for sure. It's not written in stone. I know one argument towards this is because in the kind of the pre-order deluxe edition details, there's only a skin for Ryu's Dragon Sword, while Yakumo has 3 weapon skins. If I'm going to play devil's advocate, this doesn't necessarily mean that Ryu only has one weapon, because that would also mean Yakumo only has 3 weapons. And you would at least think, especially because the game is still a few months out, they'd still have a bit more to show or something to save for when you get the game where he has more weapons. At least 1 or 2 more, I'd like to say. So maybe they just didn't want to have a skin for all of the weapons, or they just couldn't think of a skin for all the weapons. Or maybe, at least in Ryu's case, maybe they could really only think of a skin for the Dragon Sword, which is the Blade of the Archfiend, which I think is incredibly... It's a way to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Because while the Blade of the Archfiend does have had some of its own moves, I think it generally either plays exactly the same as the Dragon Sword with just some slightly different effects, or when you're kind of using it with the Dragon Sword together, it just was basically the dual katanas just with a couple additional moves here and there. And then I should say then with the other, with the Yaiba's mistake, is you're kind of just introducing this brand new character out of nowhere and you're playing as that character more. Here's the difference here though. It's been so long since Yaiba was a thing, but I'm pretty sure Ryu wasn't playable in that game at all. This game, at least he's playable a little bit. And like, I do have to say, like, if we're putting kind of these gripes aside, I think this game looks fantastic. And Platinum Games is making it. I know their record isn't as spotless as it used to be, say back in the 2010s, but they still make a lot of good games. And also, the more games you're going to make, the more games you make, the more likely you're going to have some misses. That's just how it is. There is no company that has 100% success rate with all of the games. It's not happening. And I think the biggest blunder for Platinum is like Babylon Fall. Wasn't that like a live service multiplayer game? Like all of those are doing bad right now. Like, come on, that's not fair. And I do also have to say this. While I don't necessarily like how they're kind of pushing Ryu and other characters out and kind of sort of forcing Yakumo on us, I think he is really cool, to be fair. Like, I mean, just his design is really cool. His fighting style, the weapons and all that, it looks really sick. The whole Raven motif. I mean, this character was designed for me, basically. I feel like they just gathered in a boardroom like, hey, how can we make a new character that appeals to Ragnarok? I think it's just how this is being handled is the frustrating thing. Like, I think if the game was just more of a 50-50 split between Ryu and Yakumo, and I think if Ryu at least got like the claws and the Eclipse Scythe, that would be such an easier pill to swallow. Because, first of all, Yakumo doesn't have weapons like that yet. And personally, for me at least, they're my two favorite weapons that Ryu has. So if he at least got those, that would be a much easier pill to swallow. And yeah, maybe they just couldn't think of alternate skins for those. And it is weird that you would think Yakumo would be perfect to have a claw-like weapon with the Raven motif. But then again, I guess Ryu also has a good motif, so I guess it doesn't really matter there. And, I know a lot of people complain that Yakumo looks like an anime pretty boy, which, I mean, that feels like such a 2008 complaint. Like, you're going to tell me that Ryu's not an anime pretty boy, too? The only reason you're not saying that is because you don't see him without his mask on enough. He's usually covered up more. Yakumo's just a little less covered up. And I know people also think that some people worry that the game might be a QTE fest because of the way you kind of capture those little creatures. We've seen so much gameplay now, I don't think it's going to be a QTE fest. I think it's just for those little collectibles, just to make it a little bit more engaging, just a cute little thing. No big deals right there. Of course, there could be some. I'm not going to say that there's not going to be any, but I do not think it's going to be like, vanilla and Ninja Gaiden 3 level, or maybe even Razor's Edge level with that. And like, I do also think too, like, if you think this game looks as bad as vanilla Ninja Gaiden 3 and Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, I think you're absolutely insane. This game looks like it absolutely takes a steaming dump on those two games. Regardless of the changes and shift in direction, this game just looks overall way better. Now, if you say maybe Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge is better, maybe you have a little bit more of an argument. And I'm not even going to go into the Ninja Gaiden 1 and Ninja Gaiden 2 games, because they're just a top tier. We can't really say Ninja Gaiden 4 is going to be better than those yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. But I think ultimately that is the problem. I think it's just the timing of Team Ninja doing these ideas of kind of pushing this new character on us. I think if we just had another game, Ninja Gaiden 4 is more of a Ryu and other DOA Ninja Gaiden character focused game that's kind of more of a return to form, and it maybe introduced Yakumo, and then in this game is when maybe he's playable a little bit more. I think Ninja Gaiden 5 Yakumo is playable a little bit more. Then I think, yeah, that's what I think. I think if you had, say Ninja Gaiden 4 was like, you had Ryu back, maybe at least some of the like one or two of the girls were playable, at least in the base game. And then you had Yakumo as the new character, as kind of like the V of the game. Then, in this game, I guess you say Ninja Gaiden 5, then you had and maybe just be Yakumo and Ryu, and maybe then you had Yakumo playable like a little bit more. I think that would have been the better route to go. And I do think another problem here is that it seems like Team Ninja, they literally said they forgot how to make action games like this, and that's why they need Platinum Games as help. So, and I think they did even say, I could be wrong, that they kind of wanted Platinum Games to kind of make their mark on the series, and I guess maybe that that mark is Yakumo, and maybe that's just why, which is like, I mean, okay, Platinum Games deserves it. I'm not saying they don't. It's just like, again, it just would be frustrating. It's just frustrating again that it has to be kind of the comeback game, the big comeback game that you have to kind of play it less safe and kind of have this new character take over most of the game. And it does seem like there will be some DLC, which is I know it's a weird thing to say. It's kind of a relief. It's also a bit strange, too, because a lot of Platinum games don't really have much DLC. They kind of make their games and then move on. I don't really know how much this is going to be. I don't really know if it's going to be like, are we going to get, a lot more Ryu time? Or are we going to get some other characters, some weapon? I don't know. I mean, it would be nice if they just supported the game for a bit, but I don't know. We got to see what's in the base game first. I mean, hell, they didn't even want to add, like, the missing costumes back in Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which I think was ridiculous. Really hard to call the definitive version with that stuff missing, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But regardless, I am overall looking forward to this game. I think I would just be a little bit more excited for it if they were just playing it a little bit more safe and had a little bit more Ryu, just a more even balance of Ryu and Yakumo, and just a little more, a bigger arsenal for Ryu. And again, maybe and hopefully he does have more in the base game. It's just right now it's not looking great for that. And I feel like an easy way to kind of just nip this in the bud would they be like, hey, look, we know you want more Ryu. Don't worry. He is going to be playable in the game a good amount, and he will have more weapons. But because they're not saying that, that makes me worried that that's unfortunately the case. Well, I know they haven't addressed the weapon thing. I think they have kind of addressed how much he's in the game. But then I feel like whenever game developers aren't kind of just being honest about that, that usually means it's not in, because they don't want to address... They don't want to address negative things about the game because it brings a negative light to the game, even though I kind of prefer honesty. Other people will just be like, okay, well, I'm not buying the game. And unfortunately, if we want to see more Ninja Gaiden, the game does have to do well, unfortunately. They're going to just learn the wrong lessons and be like, oh, well, I guess nobody likes, Ninja Gaiden. I guess we won't do anymore. And another thing, too, I'm a little worried about, too, in regards to the game not doing well, is I don't want them to learn the long lessons with Yakumo. I'm afraid that, because he looks really cool, that people are going to be so whiny about wanting more Ryu, they're going to say Yakumo sucks, bring more Ryu in, that any more Ninja Gaiden games, they're just going to get rid of Yakumo. And this is assuming he survives this game, too. And I don't want that. I don't want them to get, this character looks cool, but, I just want a balance. That's what I just want a damn balance. That's what we need. We're not saying to get rid of one or the other, just give us a better balance. That's all. But I think that's really it for this video. I just kind of wanted to talk about this stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you kind of agree? Do you kind of feel the same way about Ninja Gaiden 4 that me and some other people feel? Are you a little more positive about it? Are you more negative about it? You feel how I feel? Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, like the video. Dislike it if you dislike it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Would have really helped the channel out a lot. But with that being said, thank you so much for checking out this video. And as I always say, another time, another place. Keep being awesome.